16. I'm very interested to see what people are having a problem with, whether it might be just the number of teams, maybe it might not be as in-depth the women's league's modes as they are with the male versions, but no problems whatsoever with it.
I think you can divide the criticism into two things. I mean, first of all, you got the sort of the misogynic sort of gut reaction from some, but you also have the problems that players have been having with FIFA 15, and they perhaps feel that maybe this is not the thing they wanted to hear. They wanted to hear some improvements to the sort of the core experience, to the core game instead. But of course, this announcement doesn't rule that out, so we should keep an open mind to that. I think it's interesting also because obviously women's football is very big in certain countries. I think in the US, for instance, I think it's commercially more apt to have a female player, a national team player on the cover than say the best US football player on there. So it makes commercial sense as well for EA to go down this route, simply based on the fact that it'll get more attention in certain countries.
Well, that's true. I think with them not kicking things off, pardon the pun, with improvements they're making over 15, it's probably the need to be on a positive up note for the start of the FIFA 16 campaign, really.
Yeah.
Like they said, they will get round to talking about the improvements, the things that need fixed. I know some of the guys on the Gamereactor network are a little bit narked with FIFA 15, and they do have a long, lengthy list of things they feel need to be improved. And we know from previous games and previous announcements over the E3 period, there's always going to be fixes and tweaks here and there. They'll turn around and focus on one particular area as the main push for that year's edition. It may be the inclusion of the women's teams is that for this year, but I don't think that will be the only thing they're looking to change for FIFA.
No, and I also think that reading between the lines here, because the way it works with FIFA is usually they make a lot of changes one year, and maybe it doesn't work out the way it's supposed to. Then the next year, they sort of scale back a little bit on the innovation and instead make sure that all the things they put in last year works as it's supposed to. They rebalance, they tweak things, and you get a better product. So hopefully FIFA 16 is that sort of sophomore effort that'll sort of be more polished and more what we were hoping for last year. But that remains to be seen. Interesting announcement, and it's been something we should say also that a lot of people have been asking for this. There's been petitions online. I know I've asked the developers about it, so it's probably been in the works for a few years, and it's not like they're just doing it now and instead of something else. I think this is something that they've been working towards, and of course with the World Cup coming up in a few weeks, it's timely to do it now and to push for it now, because there's going to be a lot of publicity around the Women's World Cup in Canada over the next month.
Yes, and it might be nice to have FIFA in a positive news story.
Yeah, we've seen some alternative takes on the patch. Obviously today, I think it's right about now that they're announcing probably that Blatter is getting another extension to his lifetime presidency of FIFA. I haven't seen who won it, but I'll be shocked if he didn't win it, because obviously he has made a lot of people rich who are voting for this. So we'll see. But yeah, interesting.
Should be a different E3 interview than usual. There'll be a few subject things we won't be talking about.
Exactly.
The developers will basically be going, can we just talk about the game now?
Yeah. Hopefully it will have blown over a little bit there, but I don't know. I think this is the kind of story that's gonna, they're gonna leak a few more things. There's gonna be more people involved in it, and it's gonna drag on for a while. I don't think it will blow over anytime soon. So if you're interested in football, you'll probably read a lot of stories that have very little to do with football in the next few months.
And if you're not interested in football, it makes for fascinating reading anyway.
Hey, it's like it's crime story now. It's exciting stuff, and well, I mean, it's a sad day in one way, but I mean, it's also something that everyone who's been following football knows and has sort of been hoping for and expected for many years, because it needs a good cleanup, and more transparency, I think, is what's really needed for everything in terms of football. And it's not just FIFA. UEFA is not, they're not exempt from this culture, even though they try now to sort of play the good guys. Yeah.
Do you think, though, that cleanup will happen, or it will be more of a case of a sacrificial lamb and things will just continue as...
The problem is, like, I see the key for this. Now we're getting way off topic, but I think that money is the key here, and as long as it doesn't cost FIFA and its delegates and its various organizations money, they'll keep this. But the sponsors have a huge role to play here. If the money stops coming, then changes will happen. So, but as long as the money is coming, and then, I mean, some sponsors like Gazprom, for instance, the Russian gas giant, they're not too concerned with this culture. They offer their support, but other sponsors like I don't know, was Visa, I think, were a little bit more sort of politically correct in their assessments of the situation. So we'll see where it goes, but interesting.
But video games, anyway.
Video games. It also has to do with money. Yeah. So it was revealed this week that there's a new Xbox One controller in the works coming out this June, and I guess the big news here is that they're adding a 3.5 millimeter port to the so you can plug in your headset with that, which is nice. I actually have a 50% faulty record on the slot that you put in your headset on my Xbox One controller. So
I think we were actually, when we were writing this story this week, we were like, what do you actually call that connector that you plug into your controller? What's the official name for that?
Some sort of propriety connector.
But it was a little addition to the actual web page for the controller. It was stuck in right at the end, where they were stating that this jack is appearing, but yes, it will be appearing in June, which has led us obviously to have that sense of speculation that, is this part of perhaps a bigger change to Xbox One, a little bit of change to the hardware?
Yeah. Certainly something you can speculate on with E3 coming up, and Microsoft. They've done such a, they did the 180, if you will, with the Xbox One there in the beginning, and you have to sort of think that maybe the hardware could be designed more efficiently now that they sort of shedded away most of the Kinect features and stuff, and it's a big box.
Yeah.
So there should be room for improvement there, you'd think. But at the same time, it's very early, so maybe not quite yet, and it doesn't necessarily have to be related, but yeah.
No, I'm very happy to see this change happen on the controller. Certainly it's in a lot more of where Sony have with their PlayStation 4. The simplicity of that, I like it. Though it did raise up an interesting point that if the connector does away with that controller input, on the controller input you had the ability to change volume and such like that.
Yeah.
Whether that will be integrated into the Xbox One dashboard now, perhaps as a shortcut memory.
And you also have to consider things like, so if I get a new controller to replace my old one, do I need to buy a headset for that then, or change the things a little bit.
It's something that I can't imagine them just sort of dropping this in at the E3 conference, going, "Oh, by the way, we've fixed the controller a little bit. Now, next game." It sounds like it would be part of maybe a bigger change, or
or it's going to be completely quiet and they just do this, and I don't know. But yeah, I think a hardware revision would probably be a nice way for Microsoft to signal that they sort of everything that they did wrong, they've sort of taken in, and they've, this is our new offering, and here's how it works, and this and this and this and this is going to be better. So yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense, but we have very little to go on with just this little snippet here.
We'll find out in a few weeks.
Yes. Moving from one first-party hardware manufacturer to the next, Sony, and Sony's Andrew House, the president of Sony Computer Entertainment, global CEO, has been quoted saying as, "Our first-party lineup is a little sparse this year. So I think this places even greater emphasis on getting good third-party support." It's fairly rare for a higher up head honcho like that to say that, to even remotely say anything negative about your own product. But that said, yes, the first party lineup for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One this year has been fairly sparse, and he highlighted Street Fighter V as sort of something to counter this, and that we're very proud that they're doing it. But he also mentioned that those kind of deals are getting increasingly difficult to secure, which is interesting. A lot of things to digest here. What's your take on this? These frank statements that House made?
I think it's a thing of maybe admitting it now rather than get to the E3 conference and basically have a very light first party. Or, like you said, it's all about the third parties now. They want to emphasize that. But if you sat down, watched that conference, I think one of the big things people will be asking directly afterwards is, well, what happened to all the first party support? Now, we know, and this is not unique to PlayStation, we're seeing games just gradually being pushed back again and again. Yeah. 2015 to 2016, expecting 2016 stuff to be 2017 now. As the development times increase for these games, obviously there'll be a lot of downtime between them. So having something secured third-party wise is very good to turn around and say, look, you buy a PlayStation this year, okay, maybe Uncharted's not out this winter, but here are 4 or 5 really great AAA third-party titles that you can enjoy. And they'll tie into that, as we've seen with the likes of Destiny, you'll tie in sort of exclusive or even timed DLC packs to say it's worth playing this on PlayStation first. Now, the Street Fighter V thing is good, but I don't think it's got as big of a clout as Street Fighter used to do. I mean, I'm a guy that grew up with the whole SNES Mega Drive Day war, with when SNES had Street Fighter 2 for ages before Sega managed to clamp down Capcom to give them a conversion. I think it would be much stronger if they turned around and said, look, this AAA is coming to PlayStation 4 exclusively. The closest thing we've had to that before now is Rise of the Tomb Raider. And there was a lot of controversy about that and a bit of modeling of the waters to say exactly how long that would be exclusive on Xbox. We find out it's a time thing. I don't think it goes down well with the consumers. Obviously, if you own a PlayStation or indeed Rise of the Tomb Raider and Xbox One, you're going to be as happy as Larry. But if people are losing out, and especially the publishers themselves, if they're losing out on potential sales on other platforms, it may not be the smartest move for them.
Yeah, it is a very sort of tricky issue, because I feel like in some of these cases with Capcom, for instance, they signed away Street Fighter, but prior to that, they signed away Dead Rising 3 to Microsoft. That is, I mean, I can see that part of that is due to development costs being so high that they have problems supporting their own development, and they need outside help to finance things. And I think Microsoft pretty much bankrolled all of Dead Rising 3, and so they own it. And it's not coming to any other platform except for PC, that is, which they don't care about. But this is something where I can see any publisher that has these kind of situations, and there are quite a few of them these days. I would assume that Sega would be one of those developers. I mean, they did a deal with Sonic for Nintendo, didn't really pan out well. Now we hear that part of the reason for that was that it was not originally developed for Wii U, and they had to sort of midstream change direction, and well, things didn't turn out well for Sonic Boom. But that is, that is the sort of the climate that we're in right now. And so, people getting a little bit upset. Maybe the thing is, like, maybe Rise of the Tomb Raider would not happen without Microsoft stepping in and paying this money up front to Square Enix. Who knows? I mean, or something else wouldn't happen because Square Enix couldn't afford then maybe to do another Deus Ex or something else. So it's a very sort of tricky thing to sort of to navigate, and I it is a fact that Microsoft have more capital to throw around, more money to throw around in this respect than Sony. Even though PlayStation is doing well as a corporation, Sony is not too healthy in terms of money, and I'm sure they are not too keen on sort of spending huge amounts of money when, quite frankly, the position they're in, they're going to get great third party support, yes, on the fact that they are the dominant player on the market. So I would expect that the next big one to be from Microsoft, and I think there are a lot of candidates that they could pick up for the next sort of big exclusive. But it could also be that they're a little bit scared of what happened after Rise of the Tomb Raider, and they don't want that bad blood to sort of to hit them.
I think it'll be telling. Maybe they'll change their tune come Tomb Raider's release and to see what the sales are like on it, whether it does change anything. Because if it does really well for them, then they might say, to hell with the bad rep we pick up from this, because it's just a small thing compared to the amount of profit we're making off it. This makes sense. Maybe you'll see them engage a lot more aggressively with publishers for even next year's E3 and beyond.
Yeah. I mean, they had some success with Titanfall as an exclusive, and that certainly helped them in a time when they needed a little bit of a push from the hardware side. So it has been sort of both ways. I don't think Dead Rising did too much. Of course, they had a pretty decent launch lineup for Xbox One, and that was part of it. But interesting to see what happens with that, and how this plays out. But we'll see. And as I said, and as you said, I think it's a good indication that maybe Sony won't have, at least for 2015, too many new first-party titles to show at E3. But I'm sure
that's the thing with the number of conferences expanding this year with Bethesda, Square Enix doing their own things. It was even in previous years where you would see, say, Ubisoft showcase their stuff with Sony or Microsoft. So when you actually got to their conference, it felt a little bit jaded. You've already seen things, even though there was a slightly different demo. Just curious to know how that spread of games will go, because as we see with Square Enix really started kicking things off, their conference, whether it will maybe lose the impact come Microsoft's conference if they want to push Tomb Raider as one of their exclusives for the holiday season.
It's funny. Square Enix is after Microsoft. It's actually on Tuesday morning, so we won't have it. Won't sort of. But as far as I see it, actually, it's like Rise of the Tomb Raider is handled by Microsoft. It's like you get appointments for that through Microsoft. So I would assume that this is pretty much being handled as Dead Rising, in that this is and Titanfall was also partly handled by Microsoft, even though EA did most of the PR for that. So I would assume that is the main thing, and then maybe at Square Enix we'll also see the same sort of stuff, or maybe a little bit slightly different demo. But certainly the Xbox conference is key for that. I'm also interested in the stuff that because Bethesda will kick things off on Sunday. For Microsoft and Sony, it would have been huge to have either Doom or Fallout as a reveal at one of their shows. But obviously Bethesda are doing their own thing beforehand. We're likely going to see pretty lengthy demos, given they're doing a press conference, and we don't expect there to be a handful of games. We're expecting maybe 1, 2, 3 games well, not one game. I think it's going to be at least 2 games, but maybe 3 games. And of course, then you have to sort of fill the time and maybe do 20 minutes of each or something like that. So
That'd be quite nice, though. I think
yeah.
publishers having to pack in so much into their conferences.
Mm.
Studios are only getting these little 5-minute glimpses, and that's fine. It's a nice sort of teaser burn, but actually a longer time spent, especially with something like Fallout, where there's so much to that world and that franchise, and the devs really want to showcase what that world, that new world, will offer. A good 15-20 minute chunky demo would be absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I remember talking to the CD Projekt Red about being on Microsoft conference last year. They had to find like something that was less than 5 minutes from The Witcher 3. They had some difficulty, finding something that was, meaningful, but that showcased the game in a good way, and they opted for that Griffin fight, which makes sense. But again, it's like, if you compare it to what the full Witcher experience is, you're not getting any of that really through watching just one combat encounter like that. But
that's what I got with Quantum Break as well. The first gameplay with that, it didn't really get my juices flowing. But from what they've talked about, what the game will be, it's much more than just this little action oriented adventure game. But that's all you could see because they only had that finite amount of time to show off things.
Another title that I haven't heard anything about regarding E3. Hopefully it's there, but I don't know. That is a 2016 title, and the games that get delayed now to 2016, sometimes they skip out on E3 just because the development team needs sort of time to refocus with a new schedule, and they don't want to burn themselves out doing a demo for E3, and then it's a little bit disruptive with E3 sometimes, especially if you're not on the original plan, and you have, because obviously that getting to E3 and having a playable demo there is a huge undertaking for any developer. So I expect some of those games that have been delayed or that have been pushed not to sort of have anything new for us at E3. Some of them may get back to us at Gamescom, and others may wait until 2016 to sort of reinitiate the sort of the PR campaign. So I would expect that. I don't think that Sony dare not show Uncharted 4, but some other games like say Quantum Break, maybe Dead Island 2, we might not see at E3 anything new from, simply because the developers are hard at work, and it's not that soon that it'll come out. So, but yeah, let's move right along. This is a story that I expect you to have a lot of input on, as you wrote it. So WildStar is moving to free-to-play this fall. Not a surprising move, of course. It's the standard move for any sort of subscription model MMO these days. They tend to shift over to free-to-play once the player base is winding down. But yeah, so what's is it your typical free-to-play transition, this, or?
Well, they announced this at an event that I went to a few weeks ago. What was surprising, I think, at the start was that they were saying, look, we're not going to switch to free-to-play until autumn, because they were emphasizing so much they want this to continue to be and continue to feel like a AAA MMO, and they're worried the feedback, the expectation is the flip to free-to-play will mean just it'll turn to pure crap. Not that it'll turn to pure crap, but they won't give it the attention and time that they've been given to the game over the last year since it's been released. But they figure that they're not getting enough players in, there's not enough interest in it, and they want to remove all the gates as possible for people to go, right, I can engage with this, I'm not having to spend anything to try it out. And the expectation of going, our player base, like you said, will actually increase, we'll have a spike in numbers. But they emphasized, they were showing the sheer number of changes they've made even since launch. the feedback they've taken on board, and they're tweaking and changing things, adding new content, even up to now. And the intention is with this, that's not their words, it's mine, this new soft launch of the free-to-play version of it. They're going to redo the tutorials, they're going to fix dungeons, because they've found through the research that sort of dungeons, people jumped in for half an hour, didn't finish them. Just either it was too difficult or there was some other problem with them, and they're going hard at it now to fix those things. So the intention of come autumn, this game will be as polished as it ever could be. And they're just talking about, obviously there's a question of, well, okay, is it pay to win? No. Well, this is what they're saying. They're promising it's not pay to win. There will be an optional membership fee where you will get, you know, just cosmetic items for your character and your house and such like that, but nothing that will impact the game per se. If you so wish, you can just play the game, put the time in, and you will earn weapons that will be the equivalent of something that you could buy in the store.
So, I mean, the really interesting thing that I hear from this is like, I wonder, you know, because the stigma that there is with free to play, how will this sort of the current user base take this? And will there be any paying subscribers between now and fall when they plan on relaunching with free to play? I mean,
well, this is part of the loyalty program that they talked up at the event, and they're emphasizing it yesterday with the announcement. The idea that there will be different loyalty tiers depending on how much time you've put into it. So if you've been there from launch and you stay all the way through between now and when the game goes free to play, you'll get all these extra items. Even people that maybe lapsed in the game will get some nice bonus equipment as well to play around with. I think they're worried about it, as you would be, turning around and telling your audience that are paying up to now, look, in 4 months' time, this will be free. We're having an expectation. Some of the audience will go, okay, cancel my account. I'll see you in 4 months and I'll restart it. But I guess their thinking is that there's being a level of participation in the game all the way up to launch and all the way up to now. And people are dedicating that much time into this MMO world. They probably won't want to take a 4-month break. You put that much time into it, you want to keep rewarding yourself that way. But they're saying, look, we know this is going to be problematic. This might not go down too well with everybody, but they're being open and honest with it. And they're actually just doing numerous sort of frequently asked questions as well as information dumps on their official website between now and that free-to-play switch, so people can know exactly what's happening on every single aspect of the game.
I suppose there is that transparency thing. Like we made this decision and now we're working towards it, and being open with your players that's actually a nice thing, and something that we're not used to, because you know, the normal thing is you announce it and then it happens pretty much in a month or something. So
they want to do that feedback. I mean, they are fixing the game, as I said. They're emphasizing what they're doing, but a big chunk of the announcement and the switch happening is we will be getting feedback from people. So it may be a case of, if a lot of players are not happy with it, obviously they're still going to go to free to play, but what they're offering players to stay with them rather than switch off for 4 months, maybe that'll change, that'll scale up based on that. However, it's a slight plug. They are running a live stream later on tonight. I think it actually takes place just after we finish, or should I say Dory finishes with a Call of Duty Friday nights. So check out the WildStar official site to get a link to the live stream, and they're going to sit down and apparently just run through everything from top to bottom.
I suppose the other thing you can do rather than going full free to play is to go pay once to play free. You know, just buy the game and you can play free, which is I think the model that Elder Scrolls went for, and Secret World. So there are a few different models to do this, but full free to play is obviously very nice if the game is of AAA quality. But we'll see, and I'm sure there are a lot of opinions on this out there on the interwebs.
Oh God, yes. Sure, they're formed lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah. So next story, something that's already happened, is Evolve has added something called Arena Mode, which is a new mode. It's free. Everyone can download it. It adds 5 fixed domes on each of the 14 maps in Evolve. So that means 70 lockdown venues, Thunderdomes, if you will. That sort of, I guess they distill the action because it locks the hunters and the monsters into one small area. No need for the trapper to keep them trapped. This is sort of ready-made. It's an interesting thing because it sort of really changes the dynamic of what a usual game does.
It's entirely counter to the idea of the game. The idea of tracking down the monster over the course of this massive map.
Yeah.
I guess they're hoping that this will be more intense, shorter matches as well.
I mean, I guess there are some certain modes where the objectives mean that you get that sort of gameplay, but I think they want to cater to the players who don't sort of enjoy the chase, who are more in for it for the action, and this will sort of cater to them. I think the idea of 70 venues is a little bit daunting. I'm not sure, are they that different or does it add that much to have that many?
I would say so. I mean, the maps themselves are huge, and there's certainly when I was playing it over the course of the review period, there's huge sections of the map I hadn't seen before, maps I've played maybe 10, 12 times. And then we'll discover an entire different pocket right in the corner of the map we never knew about.
I'm just thinking, like, when it's locked down to an arena like that, is the geometry that different in the 70 different locations?
I can imagine so.
You think so? Yeah.
You get cliffside retreats, you get buildings, you get little dungeon almost tunnels underground. So I think there's a lot of variety there, and I can imagine they have sat down and went through those maps. Maybe through the course of testing it with the trapper domes and went, this actually creates a really nice little gameplay dynamic just in this spot. So I want to expand beyond that.
I mean, it's an interesting thing, and I'm sure that Dory is dying to try this out on a live stream sometime soon, to show it off.
I got to see his face right now.
But I mean, they have of course tweaked some things, like the monsters will start at stage 2 with a 50% armor, and things like that. There's no dropship timer, so once you die, you're out. If you're a hunter, and then so they've tweaked some of the rules to make it fair, even though obviously being locked inside a dome is sort of like at the disadvantage of the monster, you'd think, like, because that's
they said you can still feast on wildlife to reach and stuff, but in such a small enclosed space, hunters are going to be on you straight away, so you just have to keep running, or at least come up with a different strategy to try and take them out with that lower health.
I guess the idea there is that like there's no dropship, and you start at stage 2 with 50% armor, means that it'll be a little bit the rounds will obviously be a lot quicker. It's going to be all action, but it also means that they've tweaked up the monsters a little bit so that they're not. So there's not just a case of, okay, we know where the monster is, take him out, and that's it. So
but it's a free update, and it's nice to see them sort of tinkering around with it, trying different things. You know what? If it doesn't work, no one will play it. They'll see it die a death. They'll try something else, but maybe it will take off and reinvigorate the online community.
Yeah, I mean, and this is something they promised, us when they announced their DLC plans, that you wouldn't pay for this kind of thing. You wouldn't pay for maps, and then the things you'd pay for would be more hunters and more monsters. And I'm sure that's in the plans as well. If I don't really know how healthy the player base is right now. It may, I get the feeling that it's down significantly since launch, but maybe this will help and reinvigorate it, and they can bring out some other content as well. But be interesting to see how those changes things. And I'm sure that there are players who will not like this, but I'm also sure that there are players who will enjoy this more than the main modes. But Let's move on. I think this is also up your alley, so to speak. Resident Evil Zero is getting an HD remaster treatment. Bit of the forgotten chapter of the Resident Evil saga, if you will. It wasn't GameCube exclusive back in the day. Came out on Wii, I think, as well. And now it's getting that infamous Capcom HD remaster treatment. Capcom have been one of the most frequent remasters, if you will. And it's coming out on PC and Xbox 360, Xbox One, PS3, PS4. So all the usual suspects. And it's due out in digital stores early next year. What do you think of Resident Evil Zero? Is it a chapter to remember?
Just to go back to your earlier point about the infamous HD remasters, if we're talking about companies that re-release their old stuff on new formats, I feel that Nintendo's still ahead of the pack on that one. But certainly with how the success of the Resident Evil HD remaster, they've obviously went right. There is money to be made in this. And it seems obvious because, like you said, Zero was paired with the original Resident Evil and indeed 4 really on the GameCube with the whole Capcom's whole exclusivity deal with Nintendo at the time. So it makes perfect sense to just, tart this up a little bit, stick it on. Now I sat and played through this on GameCube when it first released. It's an interesting system. It's 2 characters and basically you have I think they use the term zap. So you zap between them with the intention of the other player will always be in danger whilst you're off exploring elsewhere. So you have to continually keep an eye on both of them. But the intention is then you can solve puzzles that need both characters maybe at separate ends of a particular level or map to, carry on, continue. And the idea is it ties directly into the events or leads up to the events of the original Resident Evil. It's a good game. It was slightly different at the time for what Resident Evil was trying to do, but it still ties into those classic survival horror beats that the series was originally known well for. So I can't see this not doing well, and especially given that while it was ported indeed onto Wii, I don't think the player base of this game has been necessarily huge. So there'll be a lot of people, particular Resident Evil fans, that maybe didn't get a chance to try this out first or second time around will dig into this. I just will be interested to see whether the sales will match better or exceed Resident Evil HD's release.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, that thing, because I think nostalgia and the fact that you played the old game also helps sales. Like for the original Resident Evil, I think that a lot of the people who bought that game now, they probably played the original on PlayStation and they want to relive that. So it's like, yes, it's good that not a lot of people have played it, perhaps, but it's also kind of bad. So it's difficult to tell what it'll land at. But I'd like
to see them do like HD collection packages.
Yeah.
So I remember playing Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, awesome game in the GameCube, and there's actually you play through, you would actually unlock the original Prince of Persia on it. And the idea of, say, something like that, so the Resident Evil HD remaster, play through, you unlock the original PS1 version or the, was it a survival cut? They re-released the original Resident Evil on PS1 with an update. And I can't remember offhand what the subtitle of that update was. But stuff like that, package that. So maybe package this with something else. So it's an idea of, okay, you can play through the game that you remember, but here's a couple of little extra bonus features, be the artwork, music, be they extra, dumbed down versions of the games, stick them on.
What do you think is, because, obviously Capcom have said now that they're going to focus a lot on doing HD remasters because it's been lucrative for them. What would you think is the next one to get? We're getting Devil May Cry 4 this summer, a bit more recent game. Yeah. But what do you think is next after this and Resident Evil Zero? Is there any candidate there that's been
I
left
don't think one
untouched.
necessarily stands out the top of my head at the moment. Thinking along the lines of the Resident Evil series, the problem is that HD and Zero for the GameCube still look pretty spiffy today.
Mm,
So it was fairly easy to convert them. You give it a
yeah,
bit of a tart up and release them as a digital version on new gen consoles. I don't think that system would work quite as well with 2 and with 3. And I know certainly people have been asking for Resident Evil 2 to make a reappearance
yeah,
at some time. So even if you did that, like almost like a PC emulator, tart up with the graphics, it will still look a little bit archaic.
mm,
4, then again, 4 was released in the old gen systems
yeah.
as well as a digital thing, so it might be a little bit too soon to re-release that again.
Mm. Then again, it wouldn't rule it out either. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Resident Evil 2 is probably something I would assume they're working towards, but it's going to take a little time to get it up to sort of where Resident Evil HD remaster is at, because you're going to have to rebuild a lot, and you can't just use well, that's the thing. Like, it's almost like we're telling them that you need to remake games more frequently. Then it will be easier for you to remake even more.
Vicious circle, man. But yeah, I think it would be the question of, right, do we go all out on redoing this game? But
Yeah.
if we do that, obviously the money is going to cost so much more in time
Yes.
and everything like that. It might not be just financially sound for them to do, but then re-releasing Resident Evil 2 just as it was, it mightn't take off as much. I mean, I don't want to say people would be put off by the PS1 graphics, but I think there is an element to that. Certainly Resident Evil and Zero still look pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So 2, not so much.
But do you think there's anything else? I mean, I could imagine them maybe redoing something like Lost Planet or another Devil May Cry, maybe Devil May Cry 3. I mean, those are a little bit more recent, so it'd be easier. We're sort of restricting ourselves to Resident Evil up until 4. For some reason, we're doing that. But yeah, I don't really see them going back to 5.
I mean, I think it's far too soon.
Yeah, it's far too soon, and it's not really something that people request either. I mean, we're seeing a lot of remakes or reissues from last gen, but I don't think Resident Evil 5 is a game that will get that sort of treatment.
I like the way they did. Konami did this really well with Metal Gear Solid. Now, they did it pretty much at every new Metal Gear Solid game, where they repackaged the previous games all together in a massive collection. But I think that would be cool, that when Resident Evil 7 arrives, it'd be nice to see a re-release, either as a digital code that comes in the box or a big special edition box itself, where you can get the entire run of Resident Evil in one package. You know, I'd pay money to play that.
Yeah, and hopefully remixed in sort of order of chronology, so that I don't know. It is a very sort of branching franchise, if you include all the side stories and spin-offs and whatnot. But yeah, it's interesting to see that, and I think we're gonna see quite a few more. You know, people are saying they're getting tired of the HD remasters and the definitive editions and whatnot. But this is certainly something that we'll see more of, because it's easy money for the publishers.
Yeah, this keys into a point we were talking about earlier on about development times being longer and longer.
Yeah.
And games being pushed to 2016. Publishers need to find something to fill those gaps and obviously get cash flow. And looking at a previous gen game and going, okay, we can start that up and sell it, and they are selling. Let's do that, because as owners of new gen consoles, we're going, we need to play something.
Yeah,
there's a remaster. I'll grab that. Cool, excellent.
Yeah, and it's also like, if we want to take a positive spin to it, it's if it's a great game. Much like the Resident Evil remake thing, if you remake it for a new generation, you sort of move forward the code so that it's sort of being preserved for the future, so that it can be played on something else in 10 years, in 20 years. And with the great games, we certainly want that. I mean, some games you can forget about that, and it's not a big deal. But
generation, though.
Yeah.
As long as the price is right, maybe I'll dip. double dip or triple dip.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've bought the original Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
same thing. I was actually just having a conversation with someone last night about having the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 still hooked up on the TV simply because of the digital games like all the Xbox Live Arcade stuff. I've got maybe over 100 Xbox Live Arcade games that aren't being transplanted onto Xbox One, and this is the only way I'm going to be able to play them. And stuff like Outrun, where the license is gone and the game just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
it's the only way to play them. So I would love to see some solution to that. Going, okay, here's the games that there's no licensing problems are sitting there. Let's just patch port them over to Xbox One, say Xbox Live Library. And it's like, well, there you go. There's 20, 30 arcade classics. You don't have to buy Sonic the Hedgehog again.
Yeah, I think this is sort of the promise of the cloud future of gaming, streaming cloud future of gaming. I hope it happens, and I hope it's not going to cost us a bloody fortune. But I can see it. I can see it move in that direction, even though sort of there are things that would sort of. I mean, obviously, a lot of companies are making a lot of money selling games 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. So maybe there's a little bit of a hesitance to do that as well. But hopefully that is something that we can look forward to in the future. We need to pick up the pace because we got a lot of stories to cover. So we're moving on from this onto the next one. It's going to be a brief. We're going to talk about a few E3 related things now. 2K Games have teased a new sci-fi title called Advent. It's probably that new AAA title they were talking about in their financial report a while back. And we've got some image here of it. And there's a tweet that says, "Luxury for the privileged few is outdated. This is the future of urban living." So it's like a utopia, something like that. It's just an interesting take. We usually play pretty sort of dark, futuristic visions. Even if technology advances, it seems like things aren't getting better. But yeah, so we don't really know anything about it. I had an idea that maybe this is a sci-fi Bioshock thing, but then they also talked that they don't have any announcements planned for Bioshock, and that it's still a really important franchise for them, but no plans for an announcement now, which sort of contradicts that Advent has anything to do with Bioshock. We can pretty much rule that out. So interesting to see that. I think I don't have confirmation, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that it's going to be at E3 and probably at one of the press conferences on Monday. Sony or Microsoft, I would assume that a big new game from 2K Games would get a few minutes there, at least, even though the time is a factor. But if not, it'll be announced on Tuesday or perhaps even before E3. I don't know. But interesting to see what that is, because we really don't know anything about it other than what's been said there. Do you have any thoughts on what it could be?
No, like you said, saying it's not maybe not Bioshock related, but then again, Bioshock Infinite wasn't supposed to be related to Rapture, and obviously we had that last 15-minute spin. So maybe that's it. Maybe it'll be a little tease somewhere in there.
Yeah,
it is yet just another man and another lighthouse.
Yeah,
but what we do know isn't appearing at E3, sadly, even though it was previously confirmed. Vince Zampella announced on Twitter today that there's definitely nothing about Titanfall 2 at E3.
Nope.
They're not there. They will be there having a look around, but they're not actually there to showcase anything, which is a real shame.
It's a shame, but I think EA actually has a few other games that will command our attention. So maybe it's just a matter of timing, and probably also a matter of Titanfall 2 not being planned to release anytime really soon. So they'll probably hold off a little bit on that. Rumors, of course, have it that this game will have more of a single player component as well, which probably some players would appreciate. We also have news from Square Enix that the fact that they have several new games to unveil at their E3 press conference.
Mm.
The one that's taking place right before the doors open of the LA Convention Center on Tuesday morning, which is Tuesday evening back home in Europe. It's going to be interesting to see what they've got. They got a lot of great games, even without any new announcements. They got Deus Ex, Mankind Divided. They've got Rise of the Tomb Raider, like you said, and Just Cause 3. And they also mentioned Dragon Quest Heroes 2 and Star Ocean 5. We have heard that there will be no Final Fantasy 15 at E3 this year. Obviously, they've sort of taken the feedback from the demo and reworking certain things. But I wouldn't rule it out that we might see a fancy CG trailer or something just to sort of keep us in a good mood. And I haven't heard anything about Kingdom Hearts 3 either, but I would assume that that is also a little bit off. But there will be other announcements we've heard, and that this is what they're sort of teasing here. And so
I think it could be Square Enix's conference could be one of the strongest outside this one, because it's a good.
They got such a great lineup of games. Just the games we know about is all quality, and a lot of diversity. And if they just add a couple of big announcements as well, they could certainly walk away winners at E3 this year. And I think that is why they have a press conference, because they know they have a lineup that will command attention, and they could probably not fit all their interesting games into Sony and Microsoft's conferences. So
do you think this will be, not to sort of go off subject at all, because I know we're time conscious here, but do you think this would be a thing annual now, or do you think it's more just a one-off thing because, like you said, the portfolio is so big this particular year?
I don't know. I mean, I remember the day when Square Enix used to have press conferences every year. I've been to E3 for a decade now, and back in 2005, 2006, the Square Enix press conferences were probably the highlights, of the entire show, because they were very well organized and they had a ton of great games. So I think it's something that they've probably they probably have it in their DNA to want to do this. It's just not been reasonable given the amount of titles they've had. So hopefully, if they continue to have a strong lineup, we'll continue to see press conferences. So I mean, it used to be that a lot more publishers had press conferences at E3. The 5 that have been doing it the last few years, that is the anomaly. I mean, there's usually been, like back in the day, there were 2 full days of press conferences, and they were packed. I mean, Konami used to have press conferences as well. Even the likes of like a THQ had press conferences. So it's I think it will depend on what they have, but I think it makes sense for them. If this is the amount of games they have, it makes sense for them to have their own press conferences, because they will not get enough time at the others. So, yeah. All right. So moving ahead, we have learned that Project Cars is struggling to hit 720p with 30 frames per second on Wii U, courtesy of the developers, who even said that they're hoping that Nintendo has something to announce at E3. Obviously hinting at the NX, at the new console, because they're struggling so much to get the game running on Wii U. A little bit disappointing, because this game has been announced for Wii U for a very long time, and now sort of when they've released the game on PC, PS4, Xbox One, sort of sounds like they're sort of backing out of that commitment a little bit. What's your take on this, Gillen?
Well, I tried to have a look up before the show started about when they announced this in Kickstarter recently, whether they did have Wii U down there as one of the machines or one of the formats that they would be releasing the game on. Because if they did, and now they're turning around saying, well, look, we simply can't get it working for Wii U. What happens to the people that have actually backed the game, who were looking for a Wii U version?
Yeah.
It's a real shame, because it sort of re-emphasizes perhaps that the Wii U just isn't putting it out there, isn't as strong as the current new gen hardware is. And it's a crying shame to see a console that could potentially get a really strong third-party title on its portfolio when it is struggling to get any at all.
Yeah.
Have to be told, yeah, we can't get it working on your machine. Anybody that was looking forward to it, unfortunately, you're either going to have to look to another console version or wait for the new gen, next gen Nintendo console to come out before you can get playing this.
Yeah. It's also like, I mean, I don't know. It also feels a little bit like, obviously you're going to have to sort of scale down the visuals because the Wii U is not that powerful a console. But it almost feels like they're shying away from that work a little bit. Like, oh, it's going to be so much work to get that done.
Here's the projected sales we would make.
Yeah.
It doesn't equate.
Yeah, it is a little bit. And the thing that sort of, I think if they had been open about the status of the Wii U project, which it sounds like they pretty much have put it on hold until they've finished the rest of it. If they'd been open about that, there would be more understanding. But, people have pre-ordered the game for Wii U. It's been, it's coming, but it's coming later. That has been the sort of the message. So it's a little bit of that communication thing once again. Like if you're open about things and you explain it, there's going to be more understanding if you run into problems at some point.
But I can't see, I don't think it was a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
Yeah.
We couldn't turn around and say, look, we're working on these guys first. We'll get round to the Wii U. Maybe that's what happened. They were like, we'll have Wii U and we'll focus on that once everything is out the gate. And it's like they've now got to it and went, oh Christ, this is absolutely impossible. But if they'd said that to start going, we've had a test of Wii U, it's going to be a bit tricky to get it on there, but we'll make sure to get it on, but it will come later. They'll be hit, there will be a negative publicity about that. Yeah. So it's an unfortunate situation. The only other thing would have been just to not say there's a Wii U version coming out, but
yeah. So we've got 3 minutes and 3 stories. I think I'm just gonna quickly, because I can't go through this week without mentioning The Witcher 3, which is pretty much it's been a big deal, and it's the biggest launch in the UK of 2015, beating Battlefield Hardline by 53%, and that is only counting the physical sales. I think the digital sales of Witcher 3 were probably outstripping Battlefield Hardline by even more, given GOG and Steam being perhaps the main platform of the game. So big deal. There's some technical issues, patches coming, stuff like that. The first free download dropping this week. So a lot of things going on with The Witcher 3, and it's been terrific on site traffic as well. So we've got lots of stories up on The Witcher. You can read up on how to play, how to build your character, and how to do the alchemy and stuff. We got a lot of things on The Witcher 3 on the site.
Stuff coming later this weekend as well.
Yes. Well, there's going to be a very positive story coming out this week, right? The weekend.
Yeah, we're doing the sort of balance thing. I feel we've spent this week talking about how brilliant this game is, but it's not perfect, and we'll talk about that over the weekend. So keep tuned for that.
And I thought we'd finish up by stating basically what's on Xbox Live's Games with Gold and Sony's PS Plus Instant Game Collection for this month. On Games with Gold, we've got Pool Nation FX coming back for another month on Xbox One, and it's joined by new release Massive Challenge from Double Fine. It's a game that I'm looking forward to. And on Xbox 360, we've got Just Cause 2 for the first half of the month, and then we got Thief for the second half as the free offerings. And any comment on those games?
I keep forgetting about Thief, which I think a lot of people did very quickly after the launch.
Yeah.
I never really got into it, so for me, it's an opportunity to sit down and play it. I heard very different opinions about it when it was released.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know whether those things are true or not.
Yeah. Dust off that old Xbox 360 then, and
yeah. Stop playing Streets of Rage. Play something that's a bit modern. That's the idea.
Yeah,
but then I feel that the PlayStation's lineup is, if not stronger, nicely ties into E3 as well, because we do expect Metal Gear Solid 5 to be making an appearance. So, as you put it, the price is finally right for Ground Zeroes as it goes free on PS Plus in June.
It's joined on PS4 by Skulls of the Shogun, Bonafide Edition, Futuridium, that's also out on PS Vita, and Super Exploding Zoo, that I have no idea what it is, but it's also out on PS Vita and PS4. You got Colo Juarez, Gunslinger, and Cloudberry Kingdom on PS3. So a lot, but obviously the big deal is Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes that's on PS4, not the PS3 version for this. It's only PS4. But obviously it's a great chance for you to pick it up, and you really enjoyed it. I mean, the only real thing about that game was the value when it launched last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, the cost was a little bit too high in my estimation.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. I mean, I think it got a lot of people, myself included, very excited about Phantom Pain. And hopefully people that have put it off because they don't want to pay a penny for what they consider to be a glorified demo will not get it for a demo's price.
Yeah. And I think with that, we're actually 1 or 2 minutes over time. I think we're going to shut down the stream. And we won't be back, but Dorian will be back for the second hour and play some Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. And so this is me signing off. And thanks for joining me, Gillen.
Have yourselves a good weekend, gentlemen and ladies.
Hello, is my audio working? Yes. So I'm just gonna cut to graphics now. I need to move some cables around, hook up the PC, get Call of Duty ready to run. So I'm gonna cut to graphics. I'll be back in like 30 seconds. We'll be playing Call of Duty Advanced Warfare on the PC. You can add us on Steam right there. And I have 2 codes for the Ascendance DLC to give away. So like I said, I'll be right back.